Australian Web3 platform Mutable, leading the way in terms of gaming infrastructure on the blockchain. They've received a Wells notice from the US, the SEC. The Wells notice just notifies them that they potentially have breached some sort of securities law in the US, and this is something that is not new. We've seen this across a whole bunch of different assets in recent times, recent past. Sort of goes back to that whole narrative of crypto becoming more regulated, etc.
Tether actually said it's buying more Bitcoin and will continue to do so. It currently holds around $6 billion worth of Bitcoins. It looks like they're going down the MicroStrategy path of just buying and holding Bitcoin on its books. Obviously, Tether needs reserves to maintain that one-to-one peg for the USDT stablecoin. G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Tapping Into Crypto. My name's Ted and I'm joined by Pav. Pav, how you doing?
G'day gang, doing all, Ted?
Good to hear. This is the last episode we'll do before the US election, so we're expecting a bit of volatility there. By the time this comes out, we'll know who's the next president of the United States.
Yeah, what a ride.
Big day tomorrow, but...
Who do you want? What's happening on your end?
Oh man, I don't discuss politics on here.
Okay,
as
good,
you know.
That's fair. Yeah, good shout.
I'm a centrist myself. So, but look, we've got an awesome episode. There's not much happening in the market leading up to the election. We're going to do a bit of a breakdown. We got an audience question asking us to because he's been having a bit of issues, with skeptics and people in his family is saying that they're skeptical of crypto and how to answer that question and sort of convey the value of crypto and Bitcoin across them.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, so we're keen to sort of break that down, give our elevator pitches and discuss that and challenge each other a little bit. So we'll do that later off in the show. But first of all, let's hear your thoughts on the market, Mr. Pav.
Yeah, thoughts on the market. Look, it obviously had quite a bit of a run-up leading into the last, 5-6 days ago? End of October, we really ran into the high or low 70s, I should say. And that's coming off, obviously quite a long period of price chopping up and down. But I mean, at the end of the day, since the start of September, we've done really nothing but go up almost 35%. Since the start of September to the end of October. So it hasn't been a bad time, as much as things may not seem so rosy. But one thing we were looking upon quite fondly were the institutional Bitcoin ETF flows. So the US stock market, that is how you can purchase the Bitcoin ETF from that. It was seeing some enormous buying pressure. So some of the biggest we've seen in a long time since the products went live in January. That's kind of dried up now, and I'm not overly surprised given where we are right now and some of the uncertainty that's coming up in the market right now. So you pointed out the US elections. I'd also point out the fact that we also have, coincidentally, also the next decision rate with the US interest rate meeting coming up as well. So that's, I think, on Thursday, Australian Eastern Standard Time. And right now, the consensus is we're definitely seeing a drop. So how big of a drop, we don't know. And, that kind of plays into the whole idea that, if we look at where price is right now, we're in an area that I'd consider a daily support level. But at the end of the day, we could really still fall through this floor, find support a bit lower. And it feeds into that thesis of the whole market, if there has been some sort of Trump bias for the last 2 months, and now that could be escaping as the election results come out closer.
Yeah.
Could we see a further sharp sell-off? Maybe. And this is where things just get uncertain for me. And I like to just sit on my hands and just pray, thank the gods that I have been just doing some DCA spot for the last couple of months. Mm-hmm. So yeah, for me, key areas that I'm watching, the high 60,000s, I think 66, 67K, which is kind of where we are now. There's every reason we could hold here and the market pushes higher. Or we might come a little bit lower, touch just under 60K, test that 200 period moving average on the daily as well, which is this gray line. Come along on YouTube and check us out if you want to see what we're talking about on the charts themselves. But that's hovering around $63,000 as well. So there's nothing to say where we will bounce. It's about when does the market find the confidence, I think, to push prices higher and find some conviction to pay higher prices again. And I think that's going to be a whole lot clearer next week. So like you said, volatility could be the main dish this week. It could be quite yucky.
Yeah, well, I think the expectation is Trump's good for crypto, Kamala's bad. But at the end of the day, I don't think it matters that much in the long term. Trump has promised that he's going to use Bitcoin as an asset to pay off national debt. Whether that happens or not is yet to be seen. But I think it's important to understand the outcome of the election is probably going to have short-term volatility, but over the long term, it doesn't mean that much, regardless of either way it goes. But yeah, you should probably expect some volatility over the next couple of days. But look, I'd prefer to look at, the cyclical nature of crypto and the historical performance of it. So Pav, if you could bring up that chart,
Yes.
showing sort of November's performance. So we talked a lot about October at the start of the month. That did play out. We had Bitcoin was up 11% overall throughout the month.
Some good action on altcoins too.
So that was actually under the October average across Bitcoin's existence, which was 15%, but still October, which is in the green. And then November, you could argue, is sort of Bitcoin's best month in history with an average of 37%.
Sorry, it's a bit hidden on the screen.
All good. I think November will continue to see some good action, just based on historical prices, which isn't always a guarantee, but it is, a strong indicator. So yeah, I think regardless of the election, we'll probably have a pretty strong month regardless. Sorry, I keep saying regardless.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, let's say you want to see a month where you generate 37% on average returns. I like to sort of liken it to, you've got to draw the bow back to shoot the arrow up higher. And the same thing happens with the markets. We talk about, market makers, liquidity, people in the market. You kind of need to see some sort of capitulation usually before you see a larger move. If you go back and look at some of the charts out there, not always, but it is often something that happens. So again, a move down might seem quite perilous and yucky, but it's kind of how you get that whipsaw to potentially make that move and, come close to those monthly averages. So time will tell, but I'm excited.
And on the institutional demand side of things, we've just heard that MicroStrategy revealed its 21/21 plan, which is to raise another $42 billion to buy more Bitcoin. So
how good.
They're not slowing down anytime soon. And this comes after Tether actually said it's buying more Bitcoin and will continue to do so. So it currently holds around $6 billion worth of Bitcoin. So they're actually sort of, looks like they're going down the MicroStrategy path of just, buying and holding Bitcoin on its books. Obviously, Tether needs reserves to maintain that one-to-one peg for the USDT stablecoin. But you combine that with sort of the institutional flows that you were talking about before, and that paints a really strong institutional demand picture, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess overall, the MicroStrategy, Tether, and all the institutions buying up Bitcoin significantly outweighs the number of Bitcoin being mined every day.
Correct.
And then you add that on top of all the the guys like me and you, the retail market, who are buying Bitcoin as well for their own personal investments. So I think the sort of the landscape is looking really strong heading into sort of the next couple of months, and then 2025 as well.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about it or have a slide about it, but we're tracking, I think, the Bitcoin searches and stuff the other day, and it's still at all-time sort of lows in terms of just retail interest as well. So we still have all that to come as well.
So if you're listening now, I suppose that shows you that the smart money's getting in, the likes of institutions and Tether and MicroStrategy,
potentially governments.
But for most of the market, your mums and dads, just your regular punters, they're not really back in yet. And that typically happens when the market is at all-time highs. When I know my mum and my grandma are asking, like, should I start buying this crypto? That's typically a top indicator, not all the time, but just be wary. When no one's talking about crypto and interest is an all-time low, that's typically the best time to get in, and the inverse is the same.
Yeah, well said, Ted. But let's dive into some top movers next. I think we're going to see a nice little sea of red. Yeah, there it is. What do you make of that?
Down week.
Down week.
I mean, as we said, no one's really talking about crypto at the moment. Everyone's talking about the election, probably waiting on the sidelines to see what the outcome is of that. Melbourne Cup's on in Australia. People are using their betting apps rather than their crypto, their SwiftX app. So could be something to be said there.
That's definitely it.
That must be it. But look, I know Sui was one that was like, in a sea of red. I think Sui was like one of the green ones in top 100.
It was green and just flash red. It's not far off being on par.
Still, it's bled less than the other altcoins. So
correct.
That's one of the things we've talked about before, where if an altcoin is doing like better than the others in sort of a shitty market, then typically it's going to fare better in a good market.
It goes on the watch list instantly. So some of the ones I pulled out that I've just been watching on this little chart pop up and go away. Radium, there was Sui, Maker. What was the last one? I think MOG, the meme coin, MOG. So there are a few. Again, you can just do this yourself. Come have a look at the weekly movements when we do see some down action in the market. And then, more importantly, when we do actually see the market start to pick up, see where those rotations of strengths are, because that's going to likely be potentially a very healthy watch list to be keeping an eye on, especially if you're looking at what you're going to look to get into. Because there are some assets that move while the rest stay flat. That is a fact. So this is the kind of time to be building those watch lists, paying attention.
And Pav, you only speak in facts.
Apparently.
From what I've heard.
I've heard you say the opposite quite frequently, actually.
Oh, well, you can talk it up.
Thanks, mate. There it is. There's that charm.
Let's dive into some news headlines.
Yeah, like I've got just the one I could find really that was meaningful. Australian Web3 platform Mutable. So we've spoken about Mutable on the show before, leading the way in terms of gaming infrastructure on the blockchain. They've received a Wells notice from the US, the SEC. So essentially, the Wells notice just notifies them that they potentially have breached some sort of securities law in the US, and this is something that is not new. We've seen this across a whole bunch of different assets in recent times, recent past. Sort of goes back to that whole narrative of, I guess, crypto becoming more regulated, etc. But looks like the crux of the story is that the Immutable team, they're basically calling overreach here from the SEC, sort of pointing towards the election as being a reason why they're potentially being targeted. And they don't really see anything that they're too worried about here. So
it's interesting because Immutable's based in Australia. I know they've got their headquarters down in Sydney. Obviously, they're a crypto project, so they're global. But typically, we've seen the SEC go after American-based crypto projects, companies like Coinbase, Binance. So,
what was it then? They did their investing rounds there, their seed rounds and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they've gone after Ripple, which is US based. They went after Coinbase. I mean, I suppose they went after Binance, which is technically not in the US, but they went after Binance US, the US branch of it. So I just don't understand why they've selected Immutable out of everyone in this particular instance.
I'm sure they found something that happened along the launch of the token that they're probably pointing towards that didn't quite meet to snuff the regulations, or they've missed something. So we'll look to see if any, additional details come out. But just on a side note, I guess we've seen this in recent past. Anything that tends to be associated with the Wells notice doesn't fare too badly in the past. So look, going on my watch list, that's all I'll say.
They said in a tweet here, we received this within hours of our first ever conversation with the SEC on a timeline clearly accelerated to land before an election.
Yeah, okay.
So
yeah, a bit of an agenda potentially. Who knows? We're all speculating here.
Yeah.
But look, an interesting one at the very least. So we'll leave that as it is for now and keep an eye on it. Otherwise, I think we're going to dive into the audience question we had here from
Brad. We won't say his last name. We'll keep him anonymous there. But Brad, we appreciate your question, mate. And I really like this one. Like, we get audience questions a lot, and we might do more to try and answer those on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But this one was really good. So I'll read out his a bit of his message to us. So he said, been listening for 12 months, relatively new in our family's wealth creation journey. The show has helped me a lot. Oh, he's just buttering us up there. Appreciate that. Appreciate the love. Talking to mentors, they always challenge me on intrinsic values of crypto, suggesting that there is none. My answer is the value lies in utility, along with a mix of scarcity, demand, and perception. I understand you. Oh, yeah. So that's basically what he's asking. So he wants us to have a bit of a roundtable discussion on
fitting.
Because I know personally I have had a lot of discussions with sort of my girlfriend's dad about this. Usually after a few wines, when the best ideas come out.
Yep.
Because he's has his own business, owns pharmacies, always, very conservative with his investments. His investment approach pertains to his businesses rather than, in stocks or in even crypto. But he's very open to the idea of crypto, but we always have these discussions, and he's
can't see the value.
He struggles to see the value. Yeah. I think that's partially because I'm dating his daughter. Maybe something to be said there.
He's got a bad bias. Lens of bias there.
Yeah, a little bit of bias potentially.
That's
but
good.
Look, Pav, we might kick it off with you. So what's sort of your elevator pitch you say to family or skeptics when they say there's no value in crypto or in Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it is a bit of a journey, unfortunately, for a lot of people to understand what is value, and that's starting very philosophical. But look, at the end of the day, I sort of view the whole broad industry as highly speculative growth asset class. Every cycle, you could call it, every 4 years, we see a new flavor of that period. There's very little staying power with coins outside of Bitcoin. I kind of challenge that. Really, Bitcoin honestly, stable coins are probably now the two leading use cases in the crypto space. And, while things like Ethereum has come along and laid, I guess, what you'd call almost like a digital bedrock of an economy online, it's still not prone to being superseded by something else. Like we've got Solana being a challenger brand for the last couple of years now, touting better transaction speeds, better use from a consumer perspective.
Yep.
But then again, like what's to say there's not something else that comes along in 4 years' time and is the next best thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the underlying foundational tech of what they're doing, like building like decentralized finance. So, creating like peer-to-peer lending markets, I think that's something that's going to stick. I think there's value there, but as opposed to what token is going to have the lion's share of the market moving forward for the next 20, 30 years, or if we're even around for that long, I still think that's up for debate. So for me, when I think about intrinsic value, I think holistically what the market is trying to achieve, broadly speaking, is very bullish. Like I think there's no way it doesn't get adopted in mainstream, because at the end of the day, like there was in the A16Z report that we read out 2 weeks ago, I think it was, even wire transfers between banks, they could save, I think it was 10x in fees if they just adopted blockchain technology.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
like even if they created like a only them bank to bank network where no one else could really jump in and cause trouble in the ruckus, why wouldn't they do that if they could halve their costs? Well, more than halve their costs, right? So so little things like that show me that there is demand. There's going to be demand, right?
Yeah.
But when we're talking actual intrinsic value, Bitcoin, very simply, limited supply. It's accessible by anyone, anywhere. And it is completely run off its own book. Like it's literally a group of people that make sure that it operates and it runs. A whole country could fall off the face of the planet and there's still a whole network of other computers that'll take it up and make sure it keeps running. Store of value, really. So you think about $1 million of Bitcoin versus holding $1 million of gold. Like if you just take away the price movement part of it all, it's going to be a lot easier to handle $1 million worth of Bitcoin digitally than $1 million of gold physically. And that's where I think the custody piece too as well, in a place where, people are looking to hold assets themselves, they don't necessarily maybe trust banks and other institutions. I think that's where Bitcoin really holds its role as well. But if you're trying to just think about it very fundamentally, like where does the intrinsic value come from? I just would, especially to like people I've spoken to in the past, when I explain it like, we pull oil out of the ground and there's only so much oil we can pull out. We pull gold out of the ground, there's only so much gold. Bitcoin's not any different really. It's every 10 minutes, close a block, new coins get issued. There's a set fixed amount. I would say blockchain or Bitcoin, specifically is probably more transparent because, think about an oil company, think about a gold company, even think about a farmer putting grain in a silo. Like they're holding onto their stock until the market is at a price that they're happy with to potentially go and sell it onto and create supply. So, when Bitcoin is being mined, it's ready to go. Like some people could be holding onto it, but we know that there's a fixed amount coming out of the network every given day. So for me, I just think it's a more transparent way of operating. Again, it's global. There's not really anyone that can't get access to it in some way, shape or form. Seeing huge adoption across those developing nations. Like we keep tying back to those stats as well. So that's like my really rounded, hopefully answer on like where things are going, what I think matters and doesn't matter, and why Bitcoin has value.
I think you're absolutely spot on. And like just to strip it back a bit,
You said you're going to challenge me.
I will challenge you in a sec. But to strip it back, I try and split out Bitcoin and crypto. And you could probably, like you said, you could probably rope in the stable coins and group them in with Bitcoin because Bitcoin, what it does is, in simple terms, I think it has the scarcity of gold or a similar scarcity of gold and the utility of fiat currency. Because people always ask, well, why wouldn't I just buy gold? It's like, well, can you send gold overseas, in an instant?
Can you hold on to it yourself?
Can you pay your rent in gold? Not really. It's there as a store of value to sit in a safe somewhere to accrue value over time. So. And then it's like, why would not we already have, the Australian dollar to go buy your groceries at the grocery store? It's like, well, yes, but also can you, like, as you said, international transfers, if I want to send money overseas, it's costly. It's, it's very slow, foreign exchange, converting AUD into USD potentially. But then, it also, solves the problem of inflation. Key issue in the last few years, especially after COVID and just the money printer was turning on and we've pretty much suffered since then. And so Bitcoin, as you said, scarce supply, and it's mined, at a pretty consistent rate every single day. So it pretty much solves that issue of inflation. Obviously, it goes up and down in value, and that's because it's still a very volatile asset. But then you could also argue that stablecoins are there for that reason,
Well, you could also argue like Bitcoin, if you look at it in longer, broad strokes, you stop looking at it month to month. It's done nothing but go up, right?
Yep,
so
exactly.
You could buy it now, forget about it in a year's time, and it'll probably do what it's done every year.
But I guess if someone was to argue, well, if I wanted to buy it for groceries and, I'm going to buy groceries, it's going to cost me, $30 one week, and it's then going to cost me $100 the next week.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I sort of challenge, I guess, that perspective. Like, I don't think it's that payments use case.
Yeah.
For me, it's like you have a wealth portfolio that you're trying to manage. If that's what you're trying to do, maybe you don't care about this. But there are people out there that just want to not think about it, right? But for those that do, it's like, you need cash. Like, cash is just something that until society chooses that we don't use cash and cash isn't the way we operate, we need cash, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, what do you do with the rest of your money? You either invest it in a business, like you mentioned, your family member did, or you could go and invest it in like someone else's business, like stocks.
Yep.
Or you go and invest it in other vehicles, and crypto is just one of those newer ones, right? And
well, exactly. And I think in this case, Brad's saying his mentor, so I'm assuming like investing mentor. Yeah. I think the thing to argue there is like, well, if you can't fully understand the intrinsic value, that's okay. Like, I know that's going to take time, and it will continue to sort of evolve over time as crypto expands, but it's all about portfolio diversification, right? Yep. If you've got a strong portfolio, including real estate, stocks, ETFs, commodities, all those, then why not allocate a little bit to crypto as like a maybe high risk, high reward type allocation? You don't want to really be putting all your eggs into one basket in that situation.
No, and I can actually, I like that angle, because this is the way actually I would rephrase it potentially. It's like, well, the only reason why you would actually go looking for investments is because you want to be short dollars, because you essentially don't believe that dollars are going to be the best place for you to park your money. Yeah, exactly. So when you look at all the different things that you can invest in, yes, you should have diversified portfolio, but a lot about that diversification piece, I believe, is that you need to have volatility in your portfolio as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So you get that from crypto. Crypto is the most like, if you're looking at macro, you're looking at the overall state of, what could move how much. If we do start to see things like currencies debase, like we always have every business cycle, crypto's like your best bet at this stage, in my opinion, at least. Like, I'm sure there'd be some really speculative AI stocks out there too that could do a similar thing, but this is just another option that you have.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's also worth pointing out, like, not all cryptos are going to do well. That's why it's important to do your own research. It's kind of like stocks back in the day, like people were just launching new, internet companies so they could, ride the wave up of the tech bubble.
Same thing with the marijuana stocks and biotech for a bit.
Look, I wanted to, so that's kind of breaking down Bitcoin. I look at crypto from a purely tech perspective. So, we've seen the digital age really evolve in the last sort of 20, 30 years. And I think crypto and blockchain is just an extension of that. Like, we all live in this digital world, and by investing in crypto, and I don't mean like all crypto is going to do well, like I said, but by investing in crypto, you're basically investing in like new age tech, right? And back in sort of the 90s, we saw the biggest companies in the world were mining companies and the likes of Toyota, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. If you look now, it's Meta, it's Google, it's Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, even with the new AI craze. They're all the biggest companies in the world are now tech companies. So that just shows you like the adoption of the internet has aligned with sort of the growth in a lot of those tech companies. And I think we've brought up like charts before where we've seen like the adoption of crypto wallets. So we typically see that as someone adopting it by owning their own crypto wallet is following a very similar trajectory to people using the internet in, the early 90s and into the 2000s. And that's following, and we're seeing the same with the price of crypto is aligning with the adoption of those, people opening their own wallets. So
we're just waiting for that to go from dial up to 5G on our phone. Like, it's just it's not the best experience.
Exactly. We're still in its infant stages of crypto. But I think that's the way the world has gone. Like, we could have gone down this manufacturing innovation route where we might have had flying cars by now, but it's with like all the best sort of tech and engineers and stuff have gone into software engineering, right? Because that's where the most money is made. So and the most advancements have happened in software and data and other things like that. So Yeah, and I think that crypto and blockchain technology is just, an extension of that. Same with AI, same with, other emerging technologies. So that's sort of where I see that. So I think it is crypto, altcoins are sort of like a speculative tech stock investment. I would look at it, but Bitcoin, you're more looking at from a commodity standpoint.
Correct. Yeah. Limited value. Yeah. Again, just limited supply, immutable. Like someone can't just go and change Bitcoin. It just can't happen. Yeah. Right. It basically have to take every single person mining Bitcoin to stop to kill Bitcoin. Yeah. And I don't think people would, because if there's less people, then you are more likely to get rewards. So there's more incentive for you to keep the network alive. Like it's just something that just won't.
Yeah. And I might just clarify. Yeah. You said like Bitcoin's run by a group of people. It kind of sounds kind of dodgy. If I was to hear that for the first time, I'd be like, well, who are these group of people? It's basically thousands of people who secure this network, and in order to reach consensus, they have to agree. So it's not like this, anonymous group of people who are there to steal your money. It's people all over the world. And anyone can join that network. Like you or I could start mining crypto tomorrow if we wanted to. So, I mean, Brad, I hope that answers your question, but I hope that was a sort of a helpful discussion. Like I enjoy having those discussions and kind of, because it helps, you get new ideas from it. And also, people bring up good questions about like, well, this is kind of one of the negative aspects of crypto that needs to be solved. And it's those type of discussions that foster growth and improvements, right?
Yep. And it just closes the gap, right? Like it's only through conversation you can kind of get to a point where you can actually explain this to a way that everyone can understand it. So I still think we're not there yet.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if we nailed the elevator pitch as we spoke for about
pretty long elevator.
Minutes, but
just going up the Burj Khalifa.
Yeah. Just going up and down. But yeah, hope that was helpful.
Yeah, cheers.
Well, we might leave it there because, obviously the next couple of days is going to be huge, but until the election happens, we might not see, major volatility, but next week will be big. So we'll be here next week to unpack it all for you guys. But until then, keep your eye on the markets and
stay safe.
Stay safe out there.
Stay groovy.
And stay groovy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys. See you next week.